Story 1. It started with a pizza date I didn't want to go on. Her name was Carly, and we matched on Bumble during that weird week between Christmas and New Year's when everyone's bored and pretending they have life plans. She was cute, friendly. Enough, but I wasn't really feeling a spark from our texts. Still, I figured I'd go. Maybe it'd surprise me that we met at this little wood-fired pizza place she picked out. Super cozy, real brick oven, a chalkboard menu with ingredients I couldn't pronounce. She was already at the table when I walked in, half a glass of wine in front of her and a dazzling smile that made me second-guess my lack of interest. I slid into the seat across from her, trying to mentally commit to the next 90 minutes. "Hope you're hungry," she said, beaming. "This place does a truffle mushroom crust that is insane." "Oh yeah," I said, scanning the menu I couldn't afford. "Sounds good. You have to try it," she insisted. "It's their thing. It's like the crust is part sourdough, part focaccia. Life-changing." And then I said it, without thinking, without planning, without any real reason, other than a sudden, overwhelming desire to make the evening simpler. "Oh, I actually can't. I'm gluten intolerant." I have no idea where it came from. It just happened. The words slipped out before I could stop them, and instantly, her expression changed. "Oh my God," she gasped. "I'm so sorry. I had no idea. I should have asked, are you okay being here?" I waved it off. "Totally fine. I just won't eat the crust." She spent the next 10 minutes apologizing and frantically asking the waiter about gluten-free options. I, meanwhile, committed to my new identity as someone who could not eat gluten. We ended up ordering a kale salad with grilled chicken that tasted like regret. I figured, worst case, I'd survive one night of pretending and ghost her after. Except, I didn't ghost her. So yeah, I didn't ghost her. Carly turned out to be kind of amazing. Witty, sharp, nerdy in the best way. She quoted The Office better than me. She had strong opinions on whether it was okay to put pineapple on pizza. She was pro, I was con. We agreed to disagree, and she listened, really listened. When I talked about boring stuff like my job or my dumb roommate, 1 week turned into 2. Then a month. We started seeing each other regularly. I thought about telling her the truth after date 3. Come clean, make a joke out of it. But every time I tried, the words got stuck in my throat that it had been too convincing. And it had gone too far. She had already bought gluten-free pasta and was reading labels religiously. She'd say things like, "This restaurant's got a celiac-friendly menu," with a proud little smile, like she was protecting me from the cruel, breaded world that at some point. It stopped being a lie I told her and became a lie I was living. Then, she introduced me to her friends, all of whom already knew I was gluten intolerant. "This is Ryan," she told them one night at a trivia bar. "He's super smart, amazing at movie quotes, and allergic to wheat." "Ah, bummer," her friend Mason said, offering me a beer and then quickly pulling it back. "Oh shoot, this probably has gluten, right?" I nodded. "Yeah, I'll stick with cider." It was easier than explaining everything. And honestly, it felt kind of safe. Like I had this weird little shield around me. People made accommodations. They asked questions. They cared. But deep down, it made me feel like crap, especially because I had an entire stash of forbidden food hidden in the back of my pantry. A box of Oreos in a Tupperware. A loaf of sourdough tucked behind a box of lentils. I'd eat late at night, like a guilty teenager sneaking candy. The worst part? I loved gluten. I'd grown up on bakery bread and real pasta and greasy takeout. Dumplings. Faking this allergy was like giving up a piece of who I was. But I kept going with it, thinking maybe eventually the truth would slip out naturally. It didn't. And then it got worse. It all came crashing down, or started to on. My birthday. Carly had been planning a surprise for weeks. I'd caught little hints. Hushed conversations with her roommate. Sneaky texts she wouldn't let me see. A mysterious note on the fridge that just said "Call Mel." I didn't think too much about it. I was just glad she cared enough to plan something. The night of, she blindfolded me in the car, dramatic, but kind of fun, drove me across town, and guided me up a set of stairs. I heard murmurs, laughter, then surprise. I pulled off the blindfold to see a room full of our friends. Streamers, balloons, music, everyone grinning. Someone handed me a drink. Carly hugged me tight from behind and whispered, "Hope, you're hungry." There it was. The moment I should have known was coming that I turned toward the kitchen and nearly burst into tears. The entire spread was gluten-free pizza, gluten-free cupcakes, crackers, chips, pasta salad. Every last thing, painstakingly selected, labeled, decorated with little GF flags. Someone had even brought a Ryan-safe snack board with cheese cubes and carrot sticks. Carly bounced up beside me, practically glowing. "I called 4 different bakeries for the cupcakes," she said proudly. "The first 2 didn't even know if their frosting was safe. Can you believe that?" I stared at her, the group of people I had unknowingly recruited into this gluten-free cult built on a lie I made up to avoid eating pizza. "Oh my God," I said, forcing a smile. "You really went all out. You deserve it," she said. "I know it's tough always having to watch what you eat, but now you don't have to worry." I spent the rest of the party playing host and chewing flavorless pizza like it was cardboard soaked in sadness. People kept telling me how good the gluten-free stuff was. Honestly, you can't even tell. And I kept nodding, smiling, sipping my cider. Later, when Carly handed me a single cupcake with a little candle on top, she looked at me so tenderly I almost confessed right then and there, but I didn't. I blew out the candle and wished for something impossible. That somehow, this whole thing would just go away. The guilt didn't just sit inside me. It took up space. It followed me home after the party, curled up in the corner of my room like a shadow I couldn't shake. Every time I opened the fridge, I saw the specially labeled containers Carly had made just in case I needed a snack. When she wasn't around, I'd catch myself staring at the cabinet where I kept my real food. Because by this point, I had a full-on gluten stash. I'd carved out a secret section behind a bunch of old cookbooks and baking pans we never used. That's where I kept the contraband, real sourdough, a sleeve of saltines, a box of spaghetti, sometimes a sandwich from my favorite deli wrapped in a grocery bag like it was radioactive. I didn't eat it like someone enjoying a forbidden pleasure. I ate it like a spy behind enemy lines. Paranoid, quick, quiet, chewing fast, and wiping the crumbs off the counter like I was hiding evidence. Point 1. Sunday, while Carly was out with her sister, I made a grilled cheese. White bread, sharp cheddar, melted butter in the pan. The works. I stood at the sink scarfing it down like I was on the clock, because I was. She said she'd be back in an hour, except she came back early. I heard the door click just as I was washing the plate. My heart stopped. "Hey," she called from the front door, keys jangling. "I got us some gluten-free brownies from that place on 12th. They had a whole new section." I glanced at the trash. The bread bag was open, a slice torn and ragged. A melted corner of cheese stuck to the sink. I panicked. Snatched the trash, crammed it deeper into the bin under the coffee grounds, and yanked open the window to air out the smell. She came in holding a brown paper bag and kissed my cheek. "Smells good in here. Did you make something?" I froze. No. Just toasting something for the roommate earlier." She looked at me for a second, then nodded. Okay. You want a brownie?" I nodded too fast. "Definitely." It wasn't just that I was lying anymore. It was that the lie had a heartbeat now, a rhythm. It was a part of my life, like brushing my teeth or taking the trash out, and worse. It was getting harder to imagine telling the truth. A week after the grilled cheese scare, I caught Carly reorganizing the pantry. I was on the couch, pretending to read while watching her out of the corner of my eye. She was humming, shifting jars and boxes, then paused in front of the cookbooks, right where the stash was. My heart started racing. "What's this?" she asked, pulling something out. It was the sleeve of saltines. I had forgotten to re-hide it after sneaking a few the night before. "Oh," I said, standing up too fast. "That's old. From before, before we started dating. I must have missed it." She didn't say anything for a second, just stared at it. Then she smiled. "Okay, I'll toss it." And just like that, the moment passed. But something had shifted. I could tell. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake next to her, staring at the ceiling, thinking about how far I'd let this go. I wasn't just lying about gluten anymore. I was lying about who I was every single day. The next morning, over coffee, I told her all of it. The pizza date, the dumb excuse, the way it snowballed, the guilt, the secret snacks. She didn't say anything at first, just stared into her mug. I was trying to avoid an awkward conversation, I said quietly, and I made everything worse. After a long silence, she looked at me. You're an idiot. I know, and you owe me so many real pizzas. I laughed, even though I felt like crying. Fair. We talked for a long time. She wasn't thrilled, but she appreciated the honesty. Eventually, she even joked about staging a reintroduction to gluten ceremony, complete with breadsticks. And beer.it wasn't perfect, but it was real, and for the first time in 6 years, I had a sandwich in the open sunlight. Story 2. So, I kind of lied on my rise. You made out it wasn't that bad. Just a little exaggeration. Everyone does it, right? Except mine was about knowing how to code. And now I'm supposed to give a live demo of an app one didn't actually build. In front of the entire company. Tomorrow, let me back up. I'm Ethan. 28. Marketing background. I've worked for mid-sized startups most of my career. Decent at copywriting, good with people, excellent at bullshitting my way through a pitch. A few months ago, I applied to a tech company called Brightforge. They were hiring for a product experience specialist, whatever that means. The job description had a bunch of random stuff. User feedback, copy tweaks, testing, but then, buried near the bottom, was a line that said, bonus, familiarity with JavaScript, React, or basic front-end development. Bonus, not required. But when I got to the interview, the CTO asked, you listed JavaScript. How comfortable are you with that? I panicked and said the dumbest thing I've ever said in my life. Oh, I built a budgeting app last year just for fun. Why? No clue. My brain filled the silence with a lie. A confident one, too. I even added, used React and Firebase. I don't even know what Firebase is. That he raised his eyebrows. Nice. That's impressive. Next thing I knew, I had the job.at first. It was fine. No one asked about the app. I did normal stuff. Tested product flows, wrote onboarding emails, made surveys. But 2 weeks ago, disaster struck. The CTO popped into my Slack with, hey Ethan, remember your budgeting app? Could you demo it at next month's All Hands? Would be great to show how we think outside the box with side projects. I stared at the message for a full 5 minutes. Then I replied, sure thing. I'll polish it up a bit. I had exactly 27 days to learn how to build a budgeting app from scratch. I had never felt more like a fraud in my life. After I said yes to the demo, I spent the rest of the day sitting at my desk, pretending to work, but really just internally. Screaming. I had no clue where to begin. I didn't even know what React actually was. I thought it was maybe some kind of robot. Spoiler, it's a JavaScript framework. I googled that. And a lot more. The first night, I went into full-on panic study mode. I watched a 4-hour YouTube video called Learn React from Scratch, paused every 5 seconds to Google terms like component and state, and made exactly one button that said click me, which did nothing. That I felt like a caveman trying to build a Tesla. By day 4, I had managed to cobble together a screen that looked like an app, a fake dashboard with income, expenses, and some static numbers. None of it worked. You couldn't input anything. But visually, it looked legit. I showed it to my roommate Max, who actually is a developer, but he stared at the screen, then slowly turned to me. Dude, this isn't even fake functional. It's just fake. I nodded. Yeah, but if I click through the screens fast enough, no one will notice. He squinted. You know you're demoing this to a room full of engineers, right? Marketing and engineers, I corrected. Which means I have a 50-50 chance. Max rubbed his temples like I was giving him a migraine through osmosis. You need at least some working features. Or you need to fake it way better. Like how? That's how I ended up learning about mock APIs, front-end libraries that simulate user input, and the art of faking an app so well that only a back-end dev would know the difference. The next 2 weeks were a blur. I worked my actual job during the day, then coded into the night. If you can call copy-pasting from Stack Overflow and screaming, "Why is nothing working?" at 1:30 a.m. coding. Somehow, by sheer desperation and way too many Monster Energy drinks, I made something that sort of functioned. You could input an income number. The total would update. You could add expenses, and they'd display in a list. It was clunky, fragile, held together with duct tape and hope, but it worked, mostly. Then came the next Slack message. Excited to see it in action next Friday. We're bringing in the exec team too. Should be fun. My stomach dropped. Now it wasn't just a demo. It was a show. That weekend, I hit full meltdown mode. I had 7 days left. The fake budgeting app, now called BudgePal, don't ask, I panicked. Kind of worked if you clicked things in exactly the right order and didn't breathe too hard. But I knew any real developer could sniff out the spaghetti code from 5 slides away. So I started working on what I could control. The presentation. I made a sleek slide deck in Figma. Minimalist theme, big fonts, catchy headings like bridging personal finance with UX, and from side hustle to system design. I added screenshots of BudgePal from flattering angles. Even though most of the features barely functioned. To round it out, I built a narrative. I practiced the whole thing in front of the mirror like I was training for Shark Tank. Budgeting isn't about numbers. It's about behavior. That's what BudgePal addresses. Simple design, fast input, clear insights. I even included fake feedback quotes. I love how easy it is to visualize my monthly spending. Beta user. There were no beta users. There was only me and my cat and my shame. Meanwhile, my roommate Max had fully transitioned into some kind of reluctant code coach. Every night, I'd yell things like, "The button broke again," and he'd sigh, close his laptop, and walk over like a battlefield medic. "Okay," he said one night, peering over my shoulder. "You've got 3 different functions called handle click doing 3 different things. This app is a horror movie." Cool, I muttered. "Can we hide that behind more padding?" Eventually, we got BudgePal to a point where it looked passable on a big screen. I hard-coded a user profile so it would auto-load fake data. I disabled anything that could go wrong. No input fields, no live editing, just a guided tour of what could be. It was smoke and mirrors. Pure theater. And on Thursday night, the day before the all-hands, Max looked at me and said, "You might survive this." I couldn't tell if that was a compliment or a warning. The next morning, I put on my best button down, charged my laptop, and walked into Bright Forge HQ with the confidence of a man on death row. I got to the office early. Way too early. The conference room was still half empty. A few engineers were setting up chairs. Someone from HR was fiddling with the projector. I picked the seat closest to the HDMI cable, opened my laptop, and stared at the BudgePal homepage like it was a loaded weapon. It looked good, clean, simple, kind of like a stripped-down version of Mint. A teal and white color scheme. A cheerful, "Welcome back, Ethan," banner across the top. I had one rule for the day. Don't click anything I didn't rehearse. By 9:05 a.m. The room was full. At least 50 people, all sipping coffee and nibbling mini muffins. My boss Lauren sat in the front row, smiling like a proud mom. Right beside her was the CTO, the same guy I lied to during the interview. He gave me a thumbs up. I almost threw up. The meeting kicked off with some boring company updates, a new client logo announcement, and then, finally, and now, we've got Ethan from Product Experience to show us something cool he's been working on in his spare time. Applause. I stood, legs numb, and walked to the front. "Thanks, everyone," I began. "So, budgeting. We all do it. Most of us hate it." That got a few laughs. Encouraging. I built a little something called BudgePal. It's a simple, personal budgeting app that helps you track your income and expenses without needing a degree in finance. I clicked to the next slide. My hands were shaking, but the slide deck was crisp. Smooth transitions. A few tasteful animations. People were nodding. "Let me show you how it works." Here we go. I switched windows to the app and hit refresh. The homepage loaded like a dream. Pre-filled data. Fake user insights. Colorful bar charts. A satisfying ka-chunk sound I'd added for flair. I walked them through a sample month. Rent, Groceries, a spontaneous sushi binge labeled self-care. More chuckles. It was working. I was actually pulling this off. Then, it happened that I saw it in the corner of my screen. A notification from my browser. React Developer Tools has crashed. Followed by, uncaught type error. Cannot read properties of undefined. And then, the whole app froze dead. Gone. BudgePal had budged its last. For a full 3 seconds, I said nothing. Just stared at the frozen screen as the BudgePal dashboard sat there, mocking me. Income, $4,000. Expenses, $3,978. Remaining, error, the room was silent. A kind of awkward, slow-blinking silence where people aren't sure if they're supposed to laugh or wait for you to fix it. I heard someone whisper, "Oof." In the back row. I cleared my throat. Looks like the app's a little too realistic. Blew up from overspending. A few pity laughs. A few cringes. I forced a smile, clicked out of the app, and pulled up the slides again. So anyway, I'll just walk you through the rest of the features here. Wait, the CTO interrupted. Was that live? Looked like a full front end. It was. Yeah, I lied. Just a glitch in the build. Happens sometimes when I run local. He nodded like he understood. I had no idea what running local even meant. Still impressive. My boss chimed in. Seriously, Ethan, doing all this on your own time? We should be putting you on internal tools. Yeah, I said, trying not to throw up. Always happy to help. I finished the rest of the demo using screenshots and vague feature descriptions like dynamic dashboards and real-time insights. Max had warned me to avoid specifics. Just keep it high level, keep it sexy. Afterward, there was a polite round of applause. Some folks even came up and said things like super cool and I've always wanted to build something like that. I just nodded, smiled, shook hands with sweaty palms. By the time I got back to my desk, I was running on adrenaline and black coffee. I messaged Max. Me. It died during the demo. Max. RIP me, but no one caught it. Max. You're a menace to society. Me. They want me to help with internal tools now. Max. Bro, that's when it hit me. This wasn't over. This was just the beginning point. 2 days after the all-hands disaster, or miracle, depending on how you looked at it, I got called into a one-on-one with Lauren, my boss. She closed the door behind her and smiled like she was about to give me a gold star. So, she said, folding her hands. That demo was really impressive. I swallowed. Thanks. I'm just glad it sort of worked. She laughed. Are you kidding? The whole leadership team was buzzing about it afterward. We've been talking for a while about streamlining our internal budget request tools, and the CTO thinks you'd be the perfect person to lead a project. My stomach clenched. Led. I repeated, hoping I'd misheard. Yeah, it wouldn't be full-time, just something small to start. But we'd love to have you prototype something like BudgePal for team-level expenses. You'd work with Sam from DevOps and maybe one of the junior engineers. Sam, the backend guy, the one with the giant beard and the terrifying ability to see through bad code like Neo in the Matrix. I forced a smile. Wow. I mean, I'd be honored. She beamed. Amazing. I'll loop you in on Monday. Oh, and great job again, Ethan. You really surprised us. I thanked her, walked out of her office, and immediately started planning my escape to a country with no internet. Instead, I called Max. I'm dead, I said. You got promoted, didn't you? Sort of. They want me to actually build BudgePal. But for the company. Max laughed. Loudly. Cruelly. You built a fake app so well that they hired you to build a real one. I built a fake app. Like 2 layers of fake. It barely functions. Well, congratulations, bro. You're officially in too deep. He wasn't wrong. On Monday, I was added to a new Slack channel. #BudgetToolAlpha. The first message was from Sam. Excited to work on this. Just send over your repo when you're ready, and we'll start scoping next steps. My blood went cold. Repo? As in codebase? As in something I didn't really have? I stared at the message for 10 minutes, then typed, Yep, just cleaning. A few things up, we'll share later today. Then I sat there, and realized I had about 6 hours to build a convincing illusion of a working repository that I spent the next 6 hours doing the digital equivalent of stuffing clothes under the bed before. Your mom walks in. I created a private GitHub repo called Budgepul Prototype, dumped in a bunch of files from a template project I found online, and manually renamed everything to look like mine. Main.js became budgetcalc.jsxapp.css, turned into budgepul_theme.css. Even the README was faked, complete with installation instructions I copied from a blog I didn't understand. I invited Sam to the repo, then closed my laptop and went for a walk before I hyperventilated into my cereal bowl. A few hours later, I got a message. Sam, nice structure. Looks clean. We'll spin it up locally tonight. I nearly fainted. That night, I wrote a full confession email. I really did. I started with, "Hi Lauren, I need to come clean about something." And I explained everything. The lie, the fake app, the panic, all of it. Then I hovered over send and didn't. Instead, I opened my laptop and started Googling how to actually build a budgeting app with React. It turns out, if you fake something long enough and barely avoid getting caught, you eventually just learn how to do it. By the time we launched the internal tool 3 months later, 90% of the code was mine. Real, working, cleanish. And when Lauren announced it at the next all hands and gave me credit for leading with innovation, I smiled, nodded, and clapped along with everyone else. Did I lie? Yes. Did I become the guy I pretended to be? Somehow. Also yes. Would I do it again? Absolutely not. Well, maybe. Story 3. It started at a wine tasting. A charity event. Very classy, very adult, very out of place for a guy like me who still buys boxed noodles by the dozen. But my friend Sasha dragged me there because she said I needed to meet people who drink without needing a chaser. That's where I met Camille. She was French. Or half French, I guess. Born in Bordeaux, moved to Chicago when she was 10. Her accent was faint. Her smile was dangerous. And when I asked what she did for work, she said, "I curate art." I blacked out for half a second from sheer intimidation. Somehow, we got into a conversation about travel. She mentioned wanting to go back to France soon, to reconnect with family. Then she said, "It's hard though. No one in my friend group really speaks French." And like an idiot, I said, "Oh, I speak French. I do not speak French. I once got a B in high school French, largely due to the fact that I called my teacher mom Mère by accident during a presentation and never recovered." But Camille lit up, like I'd offered her a plane ticket home. "No way," she said, eyes wide. "You speak it fluently?" I panicked. "Yeah, I mean, I'm a little rusty, but yeah." "Perfect," she said. "Maybe you can help me go through some of my grandmother's letters. She passed recently, and we found a whole stack of them. From the 60s. All in French. I've been meaning to translate them." I smiled. Internally, I was already Googling how to fake fluency in French. I should have come clean the next day. Instead, I downloaded Duolingo, set the difficulty to advanced, and started binging 5-minute lessons like they were espresso shots. I convinced myself that I'd pick it up again quickly, like muscle memory. But for lying. A few days later, Camille invited me over. She lived in a loft downtown. Art prints on the walls, records playing softly, and a cat named Monet who hated me immediately. She had the letters laid out on her coffee table, stacked in neat little bundles wrapped with pale blue ribbon. They smelled faintly of lavender and age. "These are all from my grandmother to a man she knew before she married. My grandfather," she explained. "We think it was a love affair. My mom doesn't want to talk about it, but I want to know." I nodded slowly, like I was emotionally preparing myself for a complex historical translation task, not silently screaming inside. She handed me the first letter. I took a deep breath. The paper was fragile, the handwriting elegant cursive. In French. I recognized. Maybe 3 words. "Want to give it a go?" she asked, eyes sparkling. "Sure," I said, swallowing a lump of panic. "Let's take a look." I pulled out my phone as discreetly as I could and angled it so the camera could see the letter. Google Translate was open and ready to go. "Dear Henri," I read aloud, hesitantly. "I hope this letter finds you well. I dream of the nights we spent in the garden. I glanced at Camille. She was enraptured that I continued, half translating, half inventing romantic nonsense based on the few words I understood and what I thought might impress her. The wind whispered through the trees like your voice in my ear. I hate to see you. Again, she gasped. That's beautiful. I smiled. Your grandmother had a gift. We made it through 2 more letters like that. I kept my phone low, translating bits, filling in the gaps with whatever sounded vaguely poetic and sad. By the 3rd one, I had built an entire fake love story involving secret meetings in a vineyard and a forbidden kiss under a fig tree. It was objectively my best work as a writer. Too bad it was also a felony-level deception. And then Camille looked at me with that same wide-eyed wonder and said, "We should make this into a book or a short film. You could be the translator on the project." My soul left my body. Camille's eyes sparkled with excitement. We could call it something like Letters from the Garden or Whispers to Henri. Oh my God, what if we recorded a voiceover in French? You could read it. I blinked. Like, aloud. Yeah, she said, already reaching for her laptop. Your accent is really good. I bet it'd sound incredible. Now, to be clear, I do have a decent fake French accent. I learned it in high school to mock the annoying kid who actually tried. But reading whole monologues in French for a romantic short film, that's war crime territory. I scrambled to find a distraction. I mean, let's not get ahead of ourselves. We still need to finish reading the letters, right? She nodded, calming down. True. But seriously, you've been amazing. I wouldn't have gotten through any of this without you. Which made me feel worse, because the longer this went on, the deeper I got into the emotional part of it. The story I was creating had started to feel real to her. Camille would tear up at moments I totally made up. She even said, "I wish I'd known my grandma like this. I always thought she was so buttoned up." At one point, she got up to make tea, and I scrolled through one of the letters using the Google Translate photo tool, which I hadn't dared do in front of her until now. The actual translation? Henri, the harvest this year was good. We had a lovely dinner with cousins from Lyon. I hope your mother's leg is healing. Not exactly steamy vineyard romance. Another line read, I sent you the pickled vegetables you like. Be sure to boil them longer this time. I stared at it that I'd told Camille that paragraph was about sneaking into Henry's room during a rainstorm that I was building the notebook, and it was really Little House on the Prairie. And then, because my life is a sitcom written by a drunk screenwriter, she said the words I feared most. My mom's visiting this weekend. She'd love to meet you, and maybe you can read a few of the letters with her. She grew up in France. I dropped my mug. The mug shattered on the floor, which turned out to be a great distraction. Camille gasped and ran to get a towel, and I mumbled something about my clumsy hands. In English, of course. My hands weren't the problem. My entire existence was her mom. Grew up in France. Wanted me to read the letters with her. That I had 2 options. Admit everything and accept that Camille would never trust me again. Find a way to survive one afternoon with a native French speaker and pray she didn't ask me to conjugate anything. Spoiler, I chose option 2. That the night before the visit, I made flashcards. Actual, physical flashcards. Words like amour, jardin, and été, which I now knew meant summer, not eternity, as I had previously claimed. I rehearsed a pronunciation guide like I was cramming for the French SAT. Max. Yes, that Max, my eternal co-conspirator in bad life choices, came over to help. This is dumber than the time you lied about being vegan and got hired at a barbecue truck, he said, flipping through my fake translations. I panicked. I replied, and now I'm ghostwriting. A romantic drama based on grocery lists. He shook his head. One day your lies are going to unionize and take you down. The next day, I showed up at Camille's apartment with a bottle of wine and the kind of nervous energy usually reserved for courtroom defendants. Her mom, Marie Claire, was elegant in that way only French women over 50 seemed to pull off. Graceful, mildly intimidating, and very, very fluent. She kissed both my cheeks and said, Enchanté, Ethan. I replied with what I thought was nice to meet you, but judging by her raised eyebrow, I probably said something closer to I am cheese. We sat down. Camille passed out tea and letters like they were sacred scrolls that I cleared my throat and began reading. Cher Henri, artist. Come, Audrey. Marie Claire watched me closely. Your accent is very American, she said kindly, but in the way you say this soup is interesting when it tastes like dishwater. Camille beamed. Isn't he great? He's been translating everything. Marie Claire nodded slowly, then leaned forward and said, in perfect French, and has he translated the part about the pickled beans giving Henri food poisoning? I blinked. Camille turned to me, confused. What part was that? I smiled. Wide. Awkward. Oh, I must have missed that line. Marie Claire didn't smile back. That Marie Claire was polite about it. Too polite. That terrifying French level of civility that feels more like a scalpel than a handshake. She leaned back, sipped her tea, and said, It's funny, some of the phrases you read don't quite match my mother's tone. She was a woman of practicality, not so much a poet. Camille laughed. Oh, come on, man. You never knew her when she was young. Maybe she had a secret romantic side. Marie Claire looked at me over the rim of her cup. Perhaps. I could feel the walls closing in. She knew, or at least suspected. The way she eyed me, the way her perfectly manicured fingers tapped the edge of the porcelain, like she was waiting for me to admit it myself. After she left, Camille walked me to the elevator. She really liked you, she said with a grin. Did she? I asked, trying to keep the dread out of my voice. She did. Camille insisted. She even said your translations had flair. She never compliments anything. Flair. That's one way to describe fabricating entire romantic subplots between Henri and a woman who, in reality, was probably just concerned about pickling ratios. That night, I knew it was time that I couldn't keep going. Not because I was going to get caught, though I probably was, but because I actually liked Camille. And lying to someone you like, it feels like eating glass. Quiet, sneaky glass that so the next evening, I invited her over, sat her down, took a breath, and told her everything. The fake fluency, the invented letters, the made-up vineyard rendezvous, all of it. I even admitted that the fig tree line was something I heard in a Hallmark movie once. When I finished, she didn't speak for a while. Then she laughed. You're a lunatic, she said. Completely. I agreed. I'll show myself out. But she didn't tell me to leave. Instead, she poured us both wine and said, You know what's funny? Even if you lied about the words, you still gave me a version of her I never imagined. And I like that version, even if she never actually kissed Henri under the moonlight. I blinked. You're not mad. Oh, I'm mad, she said, but mostly impressed. And also, we are absolutely writing that screenplay, but you're not allowed to touch the French subtitles. We dated for 5 more months after that, and every now and then, she'd pass me a grocery list and ask me what it meant in French, just to watch me squirm. Camille and I didn't make it forever. Turns out, even when someone forgives you, a lie that big leaves tiny cracks. Things started to feel performative. Every time I made a joke in a faux French accent, I couldn't tell if she was laughing with me or remembering the moment I turned her grandma's pantry list into a passion novel. Still, I don't regret it. The letters, real or not, brought us close. They made us imagine love stories we'd never lived, gave us rainy Sunday afternoons filled with candles and research, and maybe, just maybe, let Camille see her grandmother as more than just a quiet woman with hard candy and orthopedic shoes. The screenplay never happened, but the idea still floats around in her Dropbox under the title Henri and the Harvest. As for me, I finally started taking real French lessons, not because I plan to fake fluency again, but because the next time someone hands me a letter in a language I barely understand, I want to at least know if it's about pickles or passion, and if nothing else, at least I'll be able to read the menu next time I'm dragged to a French restaurant.